Hi, boys and girls. Are you ready for another Christmas story? This time we're going to read The Polar Express. So sit back and enjoy another favorite Christmas story. Here we go. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear, the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. "There is no Santa," my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not those ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and my robe. I tiptoed through downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course." "This is the Polar Express." I took his outreached hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. And outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there was no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forest where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from their train as it thundered through the wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, and the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice. They looked like the lights on a steam ocean liner, sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole? Well, there it was. A huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where many Christmas toys were made. At first we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "This is where Santa will first give his first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look!" shouted one of the children, "the elves!" And outside he saw hundreds of elves as our town drew closer to the center of the North Pole. We slowed to a crawl, so crowded were the streets where Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We passed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I've ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and there he was. Santa Claus had appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointed to me and said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "How now that what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled, and then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness, and the elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him. "The first gift of Christmas!" The clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor handed me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled above us all, then disappeared into the dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked me to see the bell. I reached inside my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. And the conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear. "What? What?" I yelled. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been opened, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was my silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on one of my seats on my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, too bad it's broken." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I shook the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as the years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown up and I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. And that's the end of that.